Here we are, everyone. So in this video, we're going to talk about 3 telescopes that might make a good second telescope. Okay, first, let's make sure we're streaming. Jen, can you type a comment? Again, this is Mrs. Stargaze. Everyone, give her a warm welcome. You know, usually, as I said before, most people watch this on the rerun, so hi everyone there. We'll wait for a few people to join in, and then we'll answer some questions. You may have noticed it's like sunny and we've got a garbage bag on one of the telescopes. That's because it was supposed to rain, and then it didn't rain, and then the sun came out, but the clouds are still looking ominous, so there you have it. Yeah, so for anyone tuning in, first some news since we last talked, or maybe right before the Tiffany video, we reached 10,000 subscribers. And as part of that milestone, what we wanted to do was make some merch. So here's some examples. Here's a t-shirt, and Jen has designed some coffee mugs and all sorts of other merchandise that will hopefully be on learntostargaze.com soon. And if you don't know, though, we are primarily authors. We're actually not primarily YouTubers, and we don't intend to make money on the merch. So what we'll do is try and push those merch prices for telescope shirts and everything. We'll get those prices as low as we can, so that you can just share the love for Learn to Stargaze. And in that regard, yeah, as I said, we've got, we are authors. So here are our books. We have a new one for kids, Learn to Stargaze for Kids, which is beautiful. Working on getting this into bookstores. Let's go through my pile here. Another example of a telescope. I still need to talk to Scott from Explore Scientific to make sure we can use his scopes. And then a basic, logo shirt. And again, we're going to do our best to have these, on learntostargaze.com within the month as soon as we figure out how to set up a Squarespace business. Apparently, it's pretty easy. Okay, are people saying hello?
Yeah, people are saying hello.
Okay, well, hello, everyone. I think I see Anthony on there, definitely a top fan of Learn to Stargaze. He has this AZ GTI mount, which we can talk about in a second, I believe. And there's a hornet on my book. Just move that over here. Yeah, a lot of hornets here. We built a hornet trap, and it's up there, and we caught one hornet, and then I looked in our hummingbird feeder, and there's like a dozen hornets just like floating in the top. Anyway, yeah. So I guess that's it for news. I guess what's going on here and why I haven't been producing regular videos. The reason is I'm back at school. I'm a grad student at Johns Hopkins doing a master's in space systems engineering. And it's been very, very time consuming. And so I haven't been able to make any more long form videos. I've got a formula where I'd like to take you guys on some stargazing adventures, though, where I'll take the Dobsonian, take it out to a dark sky, and then use a little sharp star to show you what I'm seeing through the telescope, which would be cool as well in terms of a format. Yeah, no, again, the reason I wanted to do this video is just because I've been getting a lot of questions via email and in the comments on these videos that people are ready for their second telescope. And I think this happened in response to, you can see the hornet there. Get out of here. Yeah, in response to this video I did about this telescope that showed up at Costco, the Omni 102AZ. And you can see it's the blue one back here, right there. And so I think either a ton of people just bought that and then found the video, or found my video, went out to Costco to see if they had it. And so a lot of people picked those up. A lot of people watched that video. I called it "Is It Back?" because it was an old telescope. I thought it was discontinued, and it showed up at Costco for $200. And then some people even got it for $99. And what Celestron did is they ended up repurposing it and made it part of one of their premium StarSense telescopes, and are selling it for about $500. So Celestron was selling it for $500 with a little StarSense doohickey on it. And Costco was selling the same scope for effectively $99 in some places. So, yeah. Anyway, I see some questiony things in the comments.
We have a question about a Starmax 90 Macassegrain, and what do you think of it, and have you used it?
Yeah, so the 90 millimeter Max are, I should have brought mine out. I'm pretty sure they're all made in the same factory. Their telescope is about this big. The diameter is, as the name says, 90 millimeters. They're primarily a spotting scope, or they're typically branded as spotting scopes. Some of them have been repurposed for stargazing scopes. And they say they've got a little bit of pixie dust in them. I'm going to switch back to glasses here. Yeah, so the nice thing about those scopes, they're great. They're really small and they're really compact. They're a lot of fun. Yeah, so that's there's a 90 millimeter Celestron, 90 millimeter Skywatcher, and then some other brands as well. And so they're usually about f13, so that means the focal length is actually like this, even though the telescope's really small. And for whatever reason, they produce contrast that's equal to a telescope that's a few inches bigger. Your diameter, your lens gives you resolution, but there's some other factors that go into the contrast, so how much objects are sort of popping out when you look at them. And so I've used that 90 millimeter Mac to look at galaxies like the Sombrero Galaxy from basically in town, which I didn't even think was possible. And it's just a testament to the contrast that the telescope is able to achieve. Now, that said, you need to have it on a good mount. And so for that, I ended up putting it on the AZ GTI, which is the mount that's underneath this thing here.
Probably take that off now. Doesn't look like it's going to rain imminently.
Okay. So this is an AZ GTI. I just happened to put it on a wedge. And so that's sort of what it takes to get the pointing for that telescope in. So that's a great example of a good first telescope or second telescope. One of the challenges with the 90 millimeter Max is that their natural magnification is really, really high. And so they can be really difficult to point. So you want to have a really good red dot finder on there. Look at that dog. So cute. Yeah. So
she wants attention too.
She does. Anyway, yeah, lots of fun. I mean, your limiting factor with those scopes are hard to point because the magnification is so high. It's easier to find things at lower magnification, and yeah, they're aperture limited. So there's a resolution would be less than with these other scopes, or higher aperture scopes. They might be able to get at the same price. Next question. This is great. Off to a good start.
I think that's it.
Oh, that's it for questions. Okay, so addressing some of the questions that I've been getting online. So, so people have been getting this first telescope and loving it. And I think what they're doing, and I only have the French version here, they have 110 things to see with a telescope. They're going through it, finding lots of targets, but they're finding that maybe they're in the suburbs and they're a little bit aperture limited. And so it might be hard to bring in some of these darker globular clusters, not darker, just dimmer and smaller. And so they want some more aperture. And so I'm getting emails that say something along the lines of, hey, my budget is $1,000. What telescope should I buy? And so my question back to them is always, well, what do you want to do? And then inevitably I get a response that's like, well, I want to be able to see galaxies and nebulas, and I want to take pictures, and I want to see planets. And to me, that's a challenge. Like you tend to have at that price range, or in your second scope, you tend to have a different telescope for every job. And so if we look at the Costco telescope, it does sort of two of those. You can get planets. They're teeny tiny in the screen. You can get deep sky objects from dark skies, but you can't take pictures. Really, like good pictures. And with the little Costco thing, the blue one behind there. And so people want to upgrade. But when you upgrade, now you need to make a choice. Like, do you want magnification in planets? Do you want to take pictures? Or do you want great views of deep sky objects? So you really need to decide. You basically pick one or maybe two. But there is sort of an answer to the all-around best telescope for visual astronomy, and that's typically one of these Macassegrain telescopes. So this is a C8, and then I've got it on an AVX mount here. So you'll often see these on the next star alignment, and then you're still having trouble getting, right on target. So that's sort of the downside. The equatorial mount does a much better job at getting you on target every time, all night. Yeah. So, okay, I see a question, but I'll continue my thought. Okay, so that's sort of the best all-around telescope. Sort of, you can put together a package like this used for around $1,000. Everyone knows that they've been shopping for telescopes. Their prices have basically doubled during the pandemic, and so, yeah. If you want to take photos, the complete opposite is true. Photos, you want to typically start small and fast. So fast means the lowest focal ratio you can get, and a lot of the times that means no telescope at all. Just taking a DSLR and putting it on a star tracker, and then moving up to that telephoto lens so you can zoom in on Andromeda. There's a Skywatcher Adventure mount that almost looks exactly like the AZ GTI, and that can be used with your DSLR to take wide field or pictures of the night sky with tracking, or a picture of some nebula like M8 or the Andromeda Galaxy, that sort of thing. So that's sort of how you want to get into taking pictures of space. You don't go right into one of these and expect to be able to take epic pictures of galaxies with your DSLR. It's not going to work. Or with a Dobsonian too. Now there's lots of people doing it, but it's really difficult, and you might drive yourself out of the hobby. So if you've got a little bit more budget and you want to take really good deep sky photos, like this one that I use for the background here. Let me just go to the logo, like that one. I'm in the middle of the city. That photo is about a 3-hour exposure from right here, right where the telescope's positioned right now. Epic photo of the North America Nebula and the Pelican Nebula. But it really does take, all the extra little bells and whistles to put it together. And I have a video on how to put this system together. It's called Small Scope, Big Photos or something. Or shooting big, something small. Anyway, you'll see a picture of this on the cover of the video. I think I'm even wearing the same shirt. Yeah, so this...
Starting big with a small scope?
Starting big with a small scope. Yeah. And so... Yeah, so this system's about $3,000 to put together. There's some ways to cut corners, maybe if you already have a DSLR, but again, you're going to take a hit on the quality if you sort of cut corners. So that's sort of the minimum system to get these sort of epic photos when you're using a telescope. And so again, check out that video there. And then the third type of telescope that you might look at, and this is for if you want to have high resolution images of the planets and be able to just see epic views of nebula, ideally from dark skies. That's when you want the big Dobsonian, so the biggest Dobsonian you can afford. And the biggest upgrade for me on this Dobsonian, which I really got to test last weekend at the Nova East Star Party with Royal Astronomical Society of Canada, was adding StarSense to it. And now StarSense is this little device here. You clip your phone in it, and your phone turns it into a push-to go-to. And so if you're going through the objects in 110 things to see with a telescope, you basically would just type in like M31, and then the telescope will give you an arrow and you push it towards it, and then you're right on target. And so that just makes it so easy to find things in the night sky in literal seconds. And with a Dobsonian like this and dark skies, there's so many targets. The Messier items, the New General Catalog, the Caldwell Catalog, all these ones. Yeah, pretty cool. Okay.
You ready for questions?
Let's do some questions.
Okay. Is the quality difference between the SV Bunny 105, I'm sure I'm butchering how you say that, and the SV Bunny 205 worth the difference?
So the funny thing about that company has been emailing me and being like, "Can you review our cameras?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure. Just send them, and I'll take a look." And then they never show up. So I don't know yet. I guess my question would be: are they planetary cameras or are they astro deep, like I'm guessing they're starting to get into cooled astrophotography cameras. And a good way to know is sort of the rule of 1,000. Is it over $1,000? Then yeah, it's probably good. If it's under $1,000, then no, probably not. Typically, cameras, space cameras under $1,000 are for planets only, and then it's just your pixel size that makes a difference there. So you pay more money, I think, for smaller pixels in those cameras. When you're doing deep sky objects, bigger pixels are better because they collect more light, or not necessarily better, but more appropriate for a setup like this. Yeah.
Okay. Some objects in my stargazing app say magnitude unknown when the scope is pointed at them. Can't see anything. Are they just too dim, or do they not emit, or do they emit non-visible light? Sorry.
Yeah. So, and this is what I keep saying. This is why you need guidebooks and not astronomy apps. And so, astronomy apps are really, really, really bad at explaining what you're realistically able to see in the night sky. Yeah, and they also don't differentiate between what a camera can see and what your eye can see. So if we're thinking of like the picture here from my logo that's right above our head in the summertime, that's going to show up in your astronomy app. It's going to say, it's going to give it a magnitude, I don't know, 10. You are not going to see that with your eye at all. I don't even know if you can see that from the darkest place on Earth. Like the astronomy app, on paper it says you can see it. You can't. You need a camera to see that. And one of the reasons is, even if it does do magnitude, magnitude is all the brightness of that object combined into one number. So they sort of sum up all the brightness into one. So it's as if it's a point source. And so if you have a really high magnitude, low number like 5, let's say, magnitude 5 would be a bright object, right? But if that object is super spread out, then your eyes aren't going to see it. So it becomes a question of surface brightness. But even surface brightness I haven't found it to be a good metric of what you can see and what you can't see. And so that's why it really helps to, if we look at, I know this is the French version, but anyway, so we have comments at the bottom here and a difficulty rating, and it'll say if you need dark skies or not to view that object. Or it'll be like, there's the city, there's the suburbs, and then there's dark skies. And, there's a fair number of objects that can only be seen from dark skies, because you're not going to be able to separate them from the sky background. Yeah. Again, guidebooks for choosing objects, not apps in general.
Quick question, aperture of the Dob.
Aperture of the Dob is 12 inches.
And recommended telescopes for 200 pounds for seeing planets and things like the rings of Saturn.
Yeah, so planets are pretty straightforward. What's a good telescope? That C90 Macs are great. You should be able to get those for around 200 pounds. That's sort of the SCTs and the Masketovs are your sort of your planet killers, as they say. They're the ones you get for great views of the planets. Just make sure you have a good mount, because it can be annoying to look at planets because you want high magnification, and then if you're on a sloppy mount, it's hard to keep it pointed at the planet or even find the planet at all because it's bouncing around. Yeah, and that's one of the only advantages of those sort of the cheap telescopes that are really long and skinny. They are typically that way so that you can see the rings of Saturn or the moons of Jupiter. If you just use the Costco telescope with the lenses that came with it, Saturn is so small, so small. You could add Barlows and stuff to bring it in closer. You'll have some aberrations, which means you might get a blue halo on one side of Saturn and a red halo on the other, that kind of thing. But those Macs will show a really clear view. These SCTs, they'll show a really clear view. And the Macs you can get for around $200. One thing to do with them is that you could do is put it on an AZ mount. So let's say you had this Costco one. It does have slow motion controls. You could put the Masketov on that mount and use your left, right, and up and down to really keep it focused on the planet.
What made you fall in love with astronomy?
What made me fall in love with astronomy? I think seeing Saturn for the first time I think, and the other thing, it's fun to like share astronomy with other people. I think that's been the best part. Um, and we've written and published 15 books on the subject right now, and it's just been a really rewarding experience. Although sometimes I feel like I'm more of an author than an astronomer, because it can be difficult for me to go out without electronics and stargaze by myself. So when I did the Messier book, I partnered with someone that's really into that, Chris Vaughn, and so I used a lot of his stuff was those experiences hanging out with those objects in super dark skies, and I'm only now catching up to that. This last weekend we, well, I guess the weekend before was Nova East Star Party. I had about a 3 hour window where it was really just me in the skies, and I got caught up on a lot of that stuff. And really, I just used 110 things to see with the telescope, the Dobsonian, and the Star Sense to just take all the stress out of finding the objects. And I could see Dave Chapman, hola, and he was about 40 feet away when I was doing this. It was interesting because people talked to me the next morning, and they were like, "You were so into your telescope that nobody wanted to bother you," and they just let me to it. And what was funny is that the next night, the second night of Nova East Star Party, about 6 drunk college students showed up and started hanging out at my telescope and looking at cool stuff. And they stayed for like 3 or 4 hours, so I didn't get any independent stargazing done. But what was cool is they loved every minute of it, and we saw maybe 30 or 40 different targets, just with these, drunk college students, and I could tell that they were having fun, and they were actually, maybe it was because they were pretty intoxicated, asking some really deep and insightful questions, and it was neat to be able to answer them. As someone that studied both astrophysics and now space systems engineering, which has a lot to do with space exploration, so we sort of answer a lot of philosophical questions that these characters threw at me. So, yeah.
How are the views of Andromeda from the city with the Dob? Can you see some of the spirals, at least faintly, from the city? And how different would it be in a dark sky visually?
So for extended objects, dark skies make all the difference. So the view of Andromeda from the city is fairly aperture independent. Andromeda is huge. You're not dealing with resolution constraints there. And so basically binoculars and the Dobsonian will show the same thing from the city. It's just the way it is. I mean, Andromeda is really good in binoculars anyway. And there's a lot of technical stuff going on about why the increasing aperture doesn't necessarily improve your views of galaxies necessarily. But yeah, so through the Dobsonian from the city, it's still a little white smudge, or gray smudge. It's a circular smudge from the city. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on Skywatchers Skyliner 200p? Sorry.
Well, I think the Skywatcher Skyliner, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that's their current name for their little Dobsonian. Well, it's a little 8-inch Dobsonian. 200, the 200 usually is millimeters when you're talking telescopes, and then so that's 8 inches. And so, again, I think all those mirrors are made in the same factory. So any of those 8-inch Dobsonians, if that's the one you're talking about, they're all great. The one upgrade, some of them for some reason don't come with red dot finders. They still come with these little finder scopes, and the reason is that I think they expect you to pull those off, throw them away, and then put on a Telrad. That's this sort of gun sight looking thing right there, and that's true with any telescope. If it has a finder scope, and you're a beginner, the easiest way to make life easier on yourself is to get a red dot finder, or even easier, one of these, the Telrad. So it should project a bullseye onto the sky and not magnify the sky at all. And then what you do is just line up. If we look at 110 things through the telescope, every page has the bullseye. And so you find the constellation, and then you just line up the bullseye in your sight exactly as it's shown here, and then you should see your target. So I see Dave has a comment. You want to read that out?
The best part of Nova East was the renewed sense of community among the amateur astronomers in our region. Observing the sky was challenging, but we had fun together again under the stars.
Yeah, that's a great comment, Dave. It was so cool to be back with community stargazing again. Yeah, it's definitely been a while. We need to remember to do that more often. Stargaze with friends. Dave also has a good comment. Like when you're filling out your logbook. Sorry, I keep picking this up. Logbook, like on every page, you should write who your co-observers are, and that way it helps remember the fun times that you had when you were going out and observing. All right, so we're going to go for about 15 more minutes at most, and then we got to go pick up our youngest here. Yeah.
I actually think you're caught up on questions.
Caught up on questions. All right. Go back to sunglasses here. I'm trying to think news.
Many beginner Dobsonians are out of stock, though. Is there something that you would recommend? I don't know.
Well, yeah. I mean, it depends on the website, too. I've noticed Amazon is actually reducing some of their prices on some telescopes. They've got the really small Dobsonians, like up to 130 millimeters. They've still got a few of those in stock. And I think the optimal one right now, even though it's a little overpriced, is Celestron's 8-inch with StarSense. I've just had a really positive experience with StarSense. I know that scope's about $1,000 here in Canada. You know, an 8-inch Dobsonian used to be $399 before the pandemic, so it's a pretty big hit. But in terms of the fun factor is high with the Dobsonian. So,
do you have reliable places that you look for, like go back to for looking for telescopes?
So, I don't know, in Canada, so I bought a lot of used scopes, and I typically get used scopes on B&H Photo. And they have free shipping to Canada and pretty much anywhere in the world, I think. So, a lot on there. I've bought a couple on Facebook Marketplace. You know, I know what I'm looking for. I bought my my smaller Dobsonian. So I bought a 6-inch Dobsonian on Facebook, and then an 8-inch Dobsonian on Craigslist. Paid $150 for the 6-inch and $200 for the 8-inch Dobsonian used. For new telescopes, I think in Canada the best one now is All-Star Telescope out of Alberta. It's run by a guy named Nicholas. He just bought it, but he's going crazy. He got a new warehouse. He's really trying to get stuff in stock, and so that's Canada. That's All-Star Telescope. Again, not sponsored. Hopefully soon, though. Maybe we'll get a sponsor on this channel. Yeah. So, and then in the States, OPT is one of your bigger ones. And a lot of the stuff is B&H, and I think a lot of the telescope are drop shipped. Like, so the websites are just fronts, and then the stuff actually comes from the factory in China. I don't know for sure. But it seems like they all sort of go out of stock at the same time, a lot of these telescopes. So that suggests to me that they're all actually the same supplier, just different websites. Yeah, but I've got a bit of scopes on B&H Photo or direct from the factory. Explore Scientific, I've bought direct from them. This little guy came from Con Telescopes in Canada. This telescope was eBay. The mount was used on B&H Photo. So. Yeah.
And Anthony says Unistellar has the Equinox for sale for
$2,000. So the Equinox.
Go ahead.
I saw that. Yeah. So the Unistellar scope usually $3,000 down to $2,000. That would be a good outreach tool. And the really cool thing about that is that it projects whatever the image. It's really just a camera. You don't look in unless you want to. If you look in, you're looking at a screen. There's a hole that you look in, and it's a screen. But it also projects what you're seeing out to different iPhones. I think up to 10 people, and that's kind of a cool feature. And then it does take pictures of galaxies and nebulas. But again, this is an electronically assisted telescope. It's not designed to take pretty pictures. It's not designed for visual observing. It's designed for like as an outreach tool. So you go and you share the night sky with other people. Yeah, but yeah, for $2,000. So I've used the the EV scope, cyans down, and it was really cool. But yeah, you're not going to print the pictures out and put them on your desktop background like you would with one of these guys. But yeah.
Is it worth upgrading the eyepiece on a StarSense 114 LT?
The StarSense 114. Yeah.
Upgrading the eyepiece.
I mean, the best thing you can do there is just take the StarSense off the telescope. So that telescope is Bird-Jonesed, and that means they used a really low quality mirror, and then they put a corrector into the finder scope to compensate for the low quality. And what it does, it doubles the focal length. And so the telescope is really challenged from a contrast perspective. So there's objects that should be easy to see that'll just be invisible, just because the color of the sky and the color of the object, there's not that much of a difference in the 114. And that goes for 127s as well. So any telescope that ends in 114 has probably been Bird-Jonesed, and any telescope that ends in 127 has probably been Bird-Jonesed. And again, that's using a spherical low quality mirror and compensating for that with an extra piece of glass in the focuser, which doubles the focal length. Yeah, not a whole lot you can do to improve the views through those. It's just the way it is. Yeah.
The Telrad is an upgrade to the normal red dot.
Yeah, Telrad is a big upgrade to the red dot. So the red dot has a couple of the red dots are awesome. I'll say that. Compared to a finder scope, makes it really easy to find stuff. As long as you align them, make sure the telescope and the red dot are pointing the same thing. But the red dot is also not a super point sourcey a lot of the time, and they're also kind of chintzy. So yeah, so the Telrad is a big upgrade, and again, what the Telrad allows you to do, because you've got these concentric rings, is you can set the rings up against reference stars. As an example, so like here is, which object is this? Yeah, M7, Ptolemy's cluster, right? And so if you just had a red dot, you're sort of out here in the middle of nowhere. But with the Telrad rings, it makes it easier to fit the Telrad circle precisely between sort of the bottom star and the fishhook and the front star and the teapot. And so it just makes aligning your scope to the star map a lot easier. Yeah. Cool. Good questions. Great questions. How are we doing?
Good.
Yeah. Yeah, so who did I see? Oh, yeah. Lisa and Rob Fanning are online. Hello. Sorry we missed you at Nova East. I guess maybe next year. I guess I heard maybe a year ago they were planning to come. But, yeah. So VJ says perhaps in 100 years. That was a follow-up.
Yeah, he can't wait till we have implants that allow us to visually have long exposures and increase aperture like cats.
Wow.
That would be pretty cool.
So Dave's used these. I don't think I've ever used them at night. They're these binoculars that are 2x binoculars. And they're sort of like stargazing binoculars. And so they make you look like you have giant eyes. And so I think they're about $200. Dave can in the comments. Anyway, so they're about this thick. And I don't know if they make a glasses version, but it basically because your pupil is only, 4 millimeters in diameter or something at night, 4 or 5, depending on your age too. And so you want to get as much light into that pupil as possible. So having these giant, sort of binocular things that you put on your I mean they're two times binoculars instead of 8 or 9, and it basically amplifies your vision for looking at the Milky Way from dark skies. I don't know if they would work so much in the city. Anyway, yeah, let's talk about To Stargaze For Kids a little bit. So I haven't turned the switch on for this one because we're still sort of negotiating with publishers as to what it looked like. So I'm super happy with the version that's online right now. Thanks for some feedback. I know Lisa commented she got a version that was pre when we switched it over to night vision mode. So because we originally had red backgrounds and white text, if you put your red headlamp on it, they disappear. And so I had caught that with my earlier books, but somehow I forgot about it. So there are a few editions of this book out here without the shadows around the white text. I think this is one of them. That's because I've given away all my current ones. I don't know, some other things going on with this book. We're reducing the page count a little bit, doing our best to keep the content the same, just because right now this book is a little bit expensive. It's been hard to get it below $21. There's only a self-published version out right now as we work with the publisher. Other than that, same content. I don't expect the content to change. But what we do need for this book are reviews. So currently it only has 6 on Amazon.com. So if you have this book, definitely leave a review. And if you don't have this book already and you don't want to buy it at $21, just add it to your wish list, and then hopefully we'll have the reduced price version out soon. So the way Amazon works, I think they charge you about 18 cents a page. And so what we've done is we've taken the planets are all spreads in this. And so we did 2-page spreads for each of the planets and included some information on space missions. So here's Saturn, 2 pages. For every page we take out of the book, I think we can knock about 30 cents off the price. I think. We'll have to run the numbers on that again. So we want to do a slightly modified version where we can really get this price down to what's reasonable. Our most popular book, 50 Things to See with a Telescope for Kids, Amazon currently has for $13.99, which is really great. And then the other thing, 110 Things to See with a Telescope, again, French version. No, so the English version of this is Amazon's got the hardcover discounted by 40%, and they've been running that sale for like 6 months now, which is amazing. So the book is originally $37 in the United States, and they're selling it for $21 in hardcover, which is cool, which is really good. I definitely recommend the hardcover version. I've had my paperback out on about 20 nights, and because of the dew and stuff, the covers are starting to curl, although it might be because I shove it in my bag. But anyway, the hardcover is definitely nice to have for 110 things to see with a telescope. It's so bright out here now, I can't see my screen, despite the ominous looking clouds. Oh yeah, and I guess upcoming videos I do need to make. We need to do one for I guess Christmas gifts. And so I do that every year. Like, what do you give an astronomer? Stuff like an XYZ for doing cell phone photos of planets. The zoom eyepieces I really like. You twist and zoom in. Stuff like that. So we'll do a video on that. Obviously promoting the books because that's how we make money. And then, there are a lot of new telescopes on the market. And so there's mounts coming online that don't have counterweights. A lot of new ones. There's a lot of like the ASI Air system that we use to sort of take away the computer from astrophotography. So a lot of the photos that I share are, when I share photos, I haven't gone and overly processed them on the computer. Most of it I do on my phone. And so that's because I like to use astrophotography to share and not to make pretty pictures for the most part. Yeah. So there's new telescopes coming online. I'm gonna see if I can get the telescope companies to send them my way, and then I'll review them. Another new telescope is the Heritage 130 is now a go-to scope. So that's his little tabletop Dobsonian. It used to be the One Sky telescope. Which is one I think you would buy it for $200 and they would give one to someone else for Astronomers Without Borders, something like that. But so that's now go-to, which is super interesting. If anyone remembers that telescope had a helical focuser, so instead of focuser knobs, you twisted the eyepiece to get it into focus. So that was pretty cool. Yeah. Any other comments? Otherwise, we'll wrap it up here. This was good. I know we didn't announce this video ahead of time, so and most people watch on the replay anyway. So definitely,
I'm being told to get on with the shop, but other than that,
get on with the shop.
Like,
yeah, people want that.
How do you actually pronounce the SV Svaboni.
Oh yeah,
Svaboni's?
Svaboni. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't.
Yeah. So they're definitely SV Bonnie, Zvani, are sort of a new low cost telescope provider. A lot of their stuff is on Amazon, and their eyepieces and stuff have been getting pretty good reviews. Their telescopes, though, are seem to be your standard, same factory made in China scopes that a lot of the brands are. Um, we haven't seen them yet do any premium telescopes.
They
I
do
don't-
those binoculars though, apparently.
Yeah, they do.
Awesome.
They do binoculars and eyepieces and stuff, and spotting scopes and stuff like that. Yeah, so cool. Anyway, so I do read all the comments, and I try to get back to most people. I tried to cover a lot of the answers and comments because they were getting long. Like I'll have to if someone says, "Hey, what telescope should I buy? I've got $1,000. I want to do all these things." That telescope doesn't exist. You know, pick two. Planets, photos, deep sky. You can't have all three. So in a single scope, or for $1,000, for that matter, this doesn't work. So that's why I tried to have this Q&A to sort of answer those questions. So anyway, yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in, and it's great to see everyone. All the comments. I can't read them; it's almost like too bright on the screen.
It is really bright.
Big thank you to Mrs. Stargaze here. Someone from our last video coined that term, and we love it. We need to make a T-shirt that says Mrs. Stargaze and Mr. Stargaze for all the spouses out there of the astronomers. Yep.
That's a good idea.
All right. All right. Ciao, Dave, Tony, Lisa, Rob. Remember, the future is looking up.